And here we are, Pete, tasting with Pete and Dave.
Indeed.
And it's on video.
Wow.
That's,
The new links.
real progress. Yeah, there are a few people have been requesting that we do this live and on video, Pete. So
Okay.
I figure OzwineTV, we might as well make it
I
like
suppose
TV.
if it's TV, then maybe we want to have images of it. I'm still not entirely convinced why anyone wants to see my ugly mug on television, but it's okay for handsome-looking guys like you. But I don't know why anyone wants to see. I don't know why anyone wants to see me on television. But we shall see how we go. What do we got here to start with?
Yeah, we've got 7 wines today, Pete, and the first one is a little French method.
Oh, okay. Lovely.
Yeah, this is
Sain-Hilaire.
Sain-Hilaire,
Oh,
right.
Cool.
From my understanding, talking with a couple of French people, they told me this is a region south of Champagne.
Yep.
So,
Okay. So where does it come from? Limoux. Okay, yes. Well, our reliable guru has told us that's down near the Mediterranean coast, down towards Languedoc.
Hold that one up for everybody.
And we'll see that. Very good. Okay.
Very fruity on the nose, very fruity. Nice, lovely bubbles in there.
Very light, isn't it? There is a little
Yeah.
bit of that yeasty sort of bread chop character that you obviously get in Champagne, but not too much of it. It's not particularly complex, but it's not a style of wine that you would be thinking of as a complex drink. You're not looking for, mind-bending complexity with something like this. I presume it's not particularly expensive. So
now there's a sweetness on the palate there too, Pete. And from my understanding, there's a grape variety used in this particular blend that isn't traditionally the norm, where normally it's Chardonnay and Pinot Noir.
Yep.
This has got an additional grape variety.
Okay.
Which adds that little bit of sweetness to it, and it's a lovely, refreshing.
Okay, well they're obviously not focusing or concentrating exclusively on Champagne grapes as such. They can use whatever the grapes are that they've got access to.
Now that's a
How do we spell it? Mauz Morzac. Okay,
Morzac.
yes, yeah. Well, that does come from the south of France, and there's some Chenin Blanc there as well, which is the white grape of the Loire Valley. And they do make sparkling wine from Chenin Blanc, and the big thing about that is that it lives for a long time. So yeah, that's really quite fresh and zesty,
Refreshing,
a lot of clean acid, and yeah, pretty good drink really.
All right, next wine we've got here from Western Australia. Now this has been around for quite a while, I understand. Houghton?
Houghton's.
Yeah. Houghton's Classic White.
Houghton's White Classic, okay, yeah. Well that is, it was always called Houghton's White Burgundy back in the day. Started by one of the icons of the industry, a fellow called Jack Mann, who basically started Houghton's, and as far as I can remember, some mid-30s I think, or even late 30s, this wine was first made. And it's only in more recent times where we've had to comply with European legislation. We're not allowed to use European names, so that's why it's no longer called White Burgundy. And yeah, they came up with the really clever original name of White Classic.
Back in the day, I understand this was on just about every wine list in Australia.
Yep, it was.
And I suspect, even though it doesn't say on the label, I suspect it's a bit of a Sauvignon Blanc blend.
Yeah, well this one is, originally the Houghton's White Burgundy was predominantly Chenin Blanc, funny enough, but I don't think there's so much Chenin Blanc in this. In fact, it smells like an SSB. It smells like a Sauvignon Blanc Semillon blend.
Yep. And I get that Semillon right up in the front of the palate, and then the secondary sort of middle palate, there is some passion fruit and some of that grassy Sauvignon Blanc sort of characteristic.
Yeah, a lot of tropical stuff happening. So I'd imagine that in keeping with the fashion and the times that, they've probably put a lot more Sauvignon Blanc in there now that would not have been there in the 60s and 70s when nobody knew what that was.
Lovely little cheapie.
Yep.
Beautiful. All right. Third wine we've got here, another white wine. Now this one does say Sauvignon Blanc on the label.
Okay.
It's the Poacher's 2012 Sain-Hilaire.
Made by Sain-Hilaire. Okay. Yeah. Well, Sain-Hilaire, one of the great names of the Barossa. They do really good Riesling. In fact, Sain-Hilaire, they're probably better known for their reds, their iconic Barossa Valley reds. But this is their everyday, I guess, classic dry white style of wine. And you get Semillon on the nose. It's interesting because it's not Hunter Valley Semillon, but it is Semillon. So you're getting a straw, hay sort of character about it. And the only real way to define it, I guess, is to say that it's like Semillon grown in a warm climate, i.e. the Barossa.
Yeah, it's, to me that seems very, very ripe. But
It
gee
is,
whiz, the middle of palate sort of falls away a bit and leaves me wanting for a little bit more. It's,
You're probably used to drinking Sauvignon Blanc, I think.
a little bit of that New Zealand influence, I think.
It is, possibly, yeah. But also, though, there's a lot of really, I guess, bracing acidity across the middle palate.
Yes.
And that comes from the Semillon. You don't tend to get that in Sauvignon Blanc. That's the big thing with Sauvignon Blanc. Why you need to buy it and drink it when it's fresh is because it hasn't got a lot of acid. So the Sauvignon Blanc you buy, as young as it can be, as fresh as it is, and drink it straight away. Semillon, the classic Hunter Semillon, will keep a long time because of that acid, and you pick up that acid on the mid-palate.
I guess in saying that, that will go well with some of those oily sort of dishes. If you've got fish that's a little bit oily, or if you've got a salad with some oil and vinegar,
absolutely. Yep.
will complement that
fish
sort
and
of
chips on the beach.
Absolutely,
no
yeah.
The acid will work well in that sense.
All right, now we get into the reds, the real stuff, Pete.
Oh, the real ones.
Yeah, absolutely.
There are people who write that stuff on labels. There's a fellow in Central Victoria who has that on the back label that all wine would be red if it could be.
Chris Ringland.
And this guy, I think, would subscribe to that
Yeah,
belief.
yeah, Chris Ringland. Now, this is the 2010 Shiraz from Barossa. And
Okay.
I've tasted this many times, Pete, and it never lets me down. 15%
Well,
alcohol, this one. That's
Yep.
big in alcohol, but you don't get that alcohol
You see,
burn on the
it
palate.
does seem quite reasonably well balanced on the nose. As you know, I'm not as much of a fan of high alcohol reds as some people are. However, there's no doubt that Shiraz can take it, as Grenache can take it, much more readily than, for example, the Bordeaux varieties. So
Wow.
you get high alcohol in Cabernet, it doesn't work so well, but Shiraz is usually rich and ripe and it'll hold that. So.
Big blackberry, and you can see that's a very, very dark wine. Big blackberry flavors. Some of that really dark plummy sort of characteristics. There's chocolate in there. That's just an absolutely beautiful example of the big Barossa Shiraz.
Oh, it is, yeah. Yeah, big sweet fruit. Interestingly, because it's 2010, and you know the 10 is such a great vintage, it doesn't seem to be too over the top. You know, it is certainly a full-on style of wine. And, you know, it still hits you between the eyes. There's nothing shy about it, but it's not porty. It's not, you know, in the way that perhaps a couple of earlier vintages of this wine have been, and maybe the sheer quality of the 2010 vintage has come into that.
Now, you said you wanted some porty sort of
Right.
characteristics.
So we have a reserve wine. Heaven forbid that this should have higher alcohol or more oak in it, but.
Bit of Chris Ringland Reserve. Now, this
Okay.
one's pretty incredible, Pete. This one has got a 16% alcohol.
Oh yes, okay.
And I
you
suspect,
can smell it straight
yes,
away. You can smell it.
Yes, and I suspect also on the nose, I'm getting a little bit more of new American oak. Would that be?
Yeah, well, it doesn't have to be American as such, but you get a lot of sweet oak, but there will be more new oak, I'd imagine. I think the vintage is a bit earlier, isn't it? Is that? Oh no, it's a 9, so
2009.
so
Yeah.
it's a year before this, and 2009 was a pretty classy vintage in the Barossa as well. Whichever one goes down in the history books as being the pick of them, who knows? But this one certainly on the nose, you're getting much more almost like a liqueured character. It is richer and more unctuous and
I feel like I could chew that one, Pete.
you probably could. You probably could. You feel as if you had too much of it, it would chew you and spit you out. 16% you said, the label says. So.
Yes, and you can see that alcohol, as they say, in the legs. That's an incredible wine. Absolutely beautiful. Now, nice big piece of protein, big steak with this. Or, quite frankly, you know, I could sit and watch the footy game and
You could do that.
a glass of this on its own.
Especially on a cold day.
Yeah.
Maybe not on a hot day, but on a cold day.
Absolutely beautiful. And it's been beautiful every time I've tried it. What have we got next here? Pepper Jack. Now, this has got a little bit of age on it.
Okay.
This is the Pepper Jack Shiraz. And this is
Shiraz, okay.
Yeah, this is the Shiraz. This is the 2008 Saltram of Barossa.
Okay, yep. Well, Pepper Jack's one of those wines that is a bit of a go-to wine for a lot of people because you see it around quite a lot. It's usually a quite reliable label. Nothing particularly pretentious about it, but generally good, consistent, well-made, I guess commercial wine, but not your everyday $10 bottle though. It's a bit better than that. And this one with a bit of bottle age on it, 2008 was hot. That's the big thing to remember about it. So there's not going to be any shortage of flavour in that. And you pick up quite a bit of that. There's an earthiness and some good structure that you
Much
get.
more earthiness in this, and still it's a Barossa Shiraz, and quite a lot of difference in the Chris Ringland in the style of wine that it is. Much more tannin in this as well.
Yeah, this is quite a lot more tannic. I would feel that this is probably drinking about as well as you would want it to go. I don't know that there would be any gain to be had from keeping this any longer.
Okay.
I think it's not likely to fall over in a hurry, but 2008, it's 5 years of age, and I think it's ready to go. You're getting the nice, soft, earthy complexity that you want from something with a bit of bottle age, but you wouldn't really be looking to keep this for an extended period in the cellar. It's drinking probably about as well now as you would want it to go.
Wow,
I think.
that's beautiful.
It is, yeah, it's a good drink.
Wow, the next one here. Now, I'm excited about this. I'm excited about this. This is one of our local wines.
Ah, right.
Local, for anybody who may have just tuned in and don't know, we are here in Canberra.
This is Canberra. So yeah, Ravensworth Shiraz Viognier,
Yes.
quite an iconic label locally.
2012.
So that's a new release, and it is pretty new. The first thing to notice about this compared to the others is the difference in the colour. It's a bright colour, but it's not as dense or as
Yep.
I guess
Yep.
it's a different type of colour. So and it's called Climate Shiraz.
And the first thing I get is a bit of the pepper. That
Absolutely.
really
You get
comes
pepper.
out in that first.
Yeah, pepper,
Up on the
lots of
nose.
other spice as well, but it's a cool climate nose, but properly ripe. So there's no thin, herbally, underripe characters in it, but properly ripe characters But yeah, really, you get that black pepper character comes through quite a lot. Once you keep smelling it, you swirl it around, and it comes up and comes up and comes up. Very elegant.
If I didn't know that was the Viognier in there, I would have almost thought that could have been a little bit of Grenache. There is
Maybe.
a little bit of the sweetness
Yeah, a
on
bit
the
of a
palate.
musky sort of.
Oh,
yeah.
it's absolutely beautiful
Yeah,
blend.
see, that's a style of wine that I like. I prefer that. Of all the wines on the table, that would be the one I would go to in terms of the style of wine I would like to take out for dinner, or a wine that if I was said, okay, what are we having for dinner? Because for me, that's a food wine. The other wines will go very well with a bit of protein, but as I often say to people, there's only so many medium rare steaks you can eat in one lifetime.
Yes.
And as much as I like steak, that would go well with steak as well. But you've also got other options there, and that's beautifully balanced. The fellow who makes that, Brian Martin, is basically does most of the hands-on winemaking at Clonakilla, and that's the famous local winery.
Wow.
So.
And I understand the Canberra region is also very good with this combination.
Oh, very
of
much so.
Shiraz.
There's nobody anywhere in Australia that does Shiraz Viognier, as well as we do here in Canberra. This is the place where it happens. If you put Viognier into a Barossa Shiraz, more often than not, you end up with almost a caricature of the wine, because you only need 3 or 4% of Viognier in a warm climate Shiraz and it starts to smell like a white wine. Here in Canberra, the cool climate, long ripening season, the Viognier comes into its own and actually adds something of interest to the Shiraz.
So a very
that's
beautiful wine.
That's a great drink, yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Fantastic, Pete. Well, here we go.
Cheers.
We'll see you again next week.
You will.